best place for below average Star Wars.
Hello there, and welcome to the Star Wars Show, the best place for below average Star Wars. As up here in Newcastle goes into another lockdown, there's no better time for another of our lockdown specials. It's knowing me, knowing you. Aha! This time it's our privilege to have the Dorky Diva herself. She's among many things an entertainment and fashion blogger, host and marketer. It is the Dorky Diva. It is Savanna Oudit. It's knowing me, Peter Adams, knowing you, Savanna Oudit. Savanna, how are you doing?
Hi, Peter. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
No problem. When I started the podcast, I had like a list of people who I definitely wanted to have on and come on and sort of host the podcast in some way with us. Obviously, you and Brian were like number one on the list, really.
Aww.
Obviously, Brian's been on twice now, and then obviously finally got you on, Savannah. So thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. I've been loving these episodes that you do with everyone. It's been really fun to listen to. So I'm excited to get to know you better and ask you all the questions that I have.
Yeah, so for those listening, the premise is basically obviously during lockdown there wasn't a lot of sort of news going on at the beginning anyway, Star Wars wise. It was about creating Star Wars content without the possibility of sort of news breaking. Although those Mandalorian leaks put pay to that. So essentially it's about sort of two Star Wars fans asking each other 5 questions, and it just gets the Star Wars conversation rolling. So obviously, I met you, Savannah, at Star Wars Celebration in London in 2016, I believe.
Yeah. Oh my
So
gosh, that feels so long ago.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. I mean, what is it? It is nearly 5 years ago.
Yeah. I remember meeting you because we were in line. I think it was for the Rogue One panel overnight. Was it that line or was it another one? I can't remember. But
I
I know
remember. I
which
remember
one was
being
it?
the. It was the line to get into Celebration. So
Okay.
I think. I mean, I could be wrong as well. It was such a long time ago.
No, I think you're right. But I think we were there for a while. Like we were sitting next to each other for, I don't know, at least a couple hours. And I think it was your first celebration, right? So I think you were asking questions and I think I overheard you. And of course, I just like butted in on your conversation. And I was like, well, this is how it works. Yeah. And then we just like stayed in touch ever since.
Definitely. So some of the questions I've got for you are definitely tailored towards um, some of the things that I know you love. So we've got a little bit
Yeah.
of fashion in there, Disney parks in there, a little bit of designing costumes and cosplay in there as well.
I'm so excited.
Awesome. So without further ado, I'll start with question number 1, Savannah.
Cool.
So my first question for you is, obviously we've mentioned Star Wars Celebration. That's how we met. Obviously before the announcement of sort of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge coming to Disney parks, there was an event called Star Wars Weekends, which I've never been to. Obviously being UK based, but I know it's an event that you really enjoyed. So I just want maybe first give the listeners sort of little detail into sort of what Star Wars Weekends were, and then the big question is, do you prefer Star Wars Weekends or do you prefer Star Wars Celebrations?
Ugh, this is such a hard question. Yeah, so I'll tell you guys what Star Wars Weekends was before I answer the question. So, Star Wars Weekends was an event at Disney's Hollywood Studios. It started in the 90s, I believe, and they did it every few years, and then eventually in the like I think around 2010 timeline, it became a yearly event and it took place over the course of 4 to 5 weekends. It was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at Disney's Hollywood Studios. And on those specific days, they would bring in different Star Wars celebrities. So, like actors, creators of the movies, things like that, and you could meet these people, you could get their autographs, you could wear your costumes to the Disney parks. The 501st Legion always did a parade in the middle of the day, and they had like a motorcade with those celebrities that were there for each weekend, and you could like see them in the parade. And they had special talk shows, so they had a few different shows every day where you could go and listen to interviews with those celebrities that were there for the weekend. And it was just such a special event for me growing up because I grew up in Central Florida, and my mom has been a Disney cast member for 15 years now. So we had the really great privilege of being able to go to the Disney parks a lot because as a cast member, you can take your family to Disney usually for free because you get a certain amount of passes per year to get friends and family in the parks. And she always used her passes to get us into Star Wars weekends because that's what my brother and I loved going and doing. So it just became a really important part of the year. Like every summer, we just looked forward to going to Star Wars weekends. And there were a lot of people we met through Star Wars weekends that we only saw at that event. So it was kind of like a family reunion every year to get together with these people. And um, that aspect of it is really similar to Celebration. Like, for example, Peter, you and I only see each other at Star Wars Celebration now. So it's always a treat when these events come along and you can see your friends that you really only see at these events. Um, but for me, it's so hard to pick between the two because I just love them both so much. But while I would definitely love Star Wars weekends to come back because they stopped doing it in, I think it must have been like 2015, I believe, maybe 2016. I think that was the last year there was a Star Wars Weekends event. And while I miss it and love it, and I would love for it to come back, I think I ultimately like Celebration more because Celebration is a lot bigger and a lot more people attend Star Wars Celebration, and there's a lot more room in the like panel rooms to fit more people. So it's like a bigger celebration of whatever's going on. And I really like the air conditioning. So, Star Wars weekends, because it was at the Disney parks in Florida, you were outside for a lot of the different activities, and a lot of the lines where you had to wait for things were always outside, and it was always super hot and very humid. And that was always difficult when you wanted to wear a costume into the parks. You had to factor in the fact that you were just going to be in like 98-degree weather all day. So that's definitely a perk of Celebration is that it's mostly indoors and it's air conditioned, which is really nice. Um, so I think out of the two, I think I'm gonna pick Celebration, but it's a really hard choice because I think they're both really great events.
Awesome. Just one follow up question on the back of that one. Um, Obviously, you were saying that sort of the 501st did like a sort of like a presentation or a parade.
Hmm.
Obviously, that's quite rare, isn't it? They will sort of allow costume guests inside Disney parks who aren't cast members.
Yes. Yeah, that's really the only time that they allowed the 501st to come in and be a part of their event. And they really only invited the 501st and the Rebel Legion because in this massive parade, Disney has their own characters that are in the parade. So for example, they have someone that plays like Ahsoka Tano, they have a Captain Rex, they have a Commander Cody. Star Wars Weekends was really in its heydays when the Clone Wars was out, so they had a few of their own Clone Wars characters that would walk in the parade. But because the 501st has so many like stormtroopers and other clone troopers and just all sorts of different characters, they would invite those clubs in to be a part of the parade. And it would just, I mean, 90% of the parade was 501st at that point. So it really just gave them a lot more people to create this amazing parade without having to make all those costumes and have cast members wear them. And I was a part of those parades for a few years through the 501st. And a really nice perk was that Disney would give you I think it was just one ticket to get into Disney if you were in the parade. So for people who didn't have annual passes or for people who didn't work at the parks already, it was really nice to have these extra tickets. And some people would just go and do the parade and then they would go home and they would save those tickets to take their families back to Disney, like later in the year. But some people would use their tickets just to go into the park right after the parade and enjoy Star Wars weekends. And, that was great. So it was really nice that they invited the 501st to be a part of it. And then they also gave them a little something as like a thank you, so that they could enjoy going to Disney too.
Awesome. And one last question on that, Savannah. In those parades, who were you costume up as?
I was always a shadow scout. So I was, like I said, I've been going to Star Wars Weekend since I was a kid, but I wasn't able to join the 501st until I was 18 because that's their requirement. And I wanted some sort of costume that had a helmet. Like I just wanted something that would cover my face because I did have a Jedi costume, but I never really wanted to wear that during the parade. I wanted to be like, a helmeted character. So I had a Shadow Scout, which is a like Spec Ops version of the Biker Scout. So it looks exactly the same. It's just black instead of white. And I definitely had, a lot of very sweaty afternoons doing that because it was a really hot costume to wear in the heat. But it was always a really fun time. And it was cool when you were in the parade and you were like walking down the center street of the theme park, and like your friends are waving at you and screaming your name, and it was just really fun.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Savannah. Your question for me now, please.
Yeah, okay. So I feel like my questions are all over the place, but my first question is, if you could be best friends with one Star Wars character, who would you pick and why?
The first name that comes to mind would be Han Solo.
Oh, that's so good.
I think like if you take like a New Hope for example, obviously he's not really friends with Luke at the beginning,
Mhm.
um, but obviously he ends up going on the adventure with him by accident. Obviously he's trying to take Luke and Obi-Wan to Alderaan. Obviously they end up getting captured by the Death Star and then end up escaping together. And then like at the end of the movie, obviously Han says he's not going to help the rebellion. He's not going to help Luke. You can see him unloading his money, getting ready to put it in the Falcon, and you think that's the end of it. But then just
Mhm.
when Luke's about to die, Vader's got him in his sights, about to pull the trigger. Obviously, the Falcon comes into frame, takes out the Vader's wingmen, and like saves Luke. And then also by doing that, allows Luke to blow up the Death Star. Um, so I think although Han, like on the surface, seems a bit like a shady character, like
Mhm.
deep down he does form like deep connections with people, and like he is there when you need him. And then if you fast forward to sort of the Force Awakens, sort of Leia tells him to bring his son home, and then like when he spots Kylo Ren on the bridge, like you can tell he's probably having thinking, I shouldn't go out there
Mhm.
to face him, but he does, and I think he knows what's going to happen. Like it's a high chance he think that his son will kill him here, but he still does
Mhm.
it anyway to give his son a chance of redemption. So I think like he's probably who I would want as a best friend. Um, hmm,
I
Trying to
think
think
that's a
who
good
else.
choice. Like, I think that's a really good choice because think about the friendship that he has with Chewbacca. And now, because of the Solo movie, we can kind of see like how long they've been really close. And, he's got to be a pretty good dude if Chewbacca stuck around for that long.
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously, and then not just Chewbacca, but also with Woody Harrelson's character. I've forgotten his name now off the top of my head.
Beckett. Yeah.
Like, yeah, he makes quite a deep friendship with him and learns a lot from him. And obviously,
Mm-hmm.
although he does kill Beckett, he kills him because Beckett's already warned him that like I will shoot you
Mm-hmm.
if you don't shoot me first. He tells him earlier in the movie. So when it comes to that scene and Han does kill him, Han probably didn't want to do that, but he knew that like Beckett will kill me if I don't do this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think like even through that movie, you sort of see through the solo movie, you see how sort of he makes friends with Chewbacca pretty quickly, and although he does it to sort of save his own skin and ends up saving Chewbacca's skin, they end up sort of staying together forever from that point on. Do you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think like he is very, although on the outside he seems rough and his initial first decisions on things got sometimes questionable. I think like deep down, and he always ends up coming back to sort of making the right decision by the people he knows.
Yeah. And I think he'll always like have your back.
Yeah, and I think off the back of that The only other person I can think of who's just as good would be R2D2,
Yeah, that's a good choice too.
because like he can always save you. He can always get you out of trouble. Um, and like I don't know if you obviously in Revenge of the Sith when Anakin tells him to stay with the ship, and then
Hmm.
Anakin doesn't come back. And then like if you notice like in the original trilogy when like take the Empire Strikes Back for example, when Luke tells him to stay with his ship, I'll take a look around. Like
Hmm.
R2 doesn't listen to him. He like pops up and he ends up falling in the river, which isn't very good in the swamp. But like he doesn't do what Luke tells him to, and the same on Bespin. Like R2D2 comes in with him and ends up lost. But by
Hmm.
doing that, he ends up uh, getting back with the Falcon crew, and then ends up managing to turn on the hyperdrive and save the skins at the last second, all because he
Hmm.
won't leave people behind anymore.
He's very intuitive to know when he needs to be a little mischievous and help people out.
Yeah,
That's a
definitely. So
good
I
one.
think for me, it's between those two. Obviously, Han's a real person, so probably Han number one. But I think
Yeah.
R2D2's integrity can't be questioned.
Yeah. Those are good choices.
My second question for you, Savannah, is about your Star Wars collection. Um, what are your favorite pieces of your Star Wars collection? And also, is there a piece that you really, really want but you haven't managed to get yet?
Oh man. Okay. Let me think for a second. Gosh. This is really difficult. I'm I'm gonna mention, oh man, this is hard. Okay. I think I've decided. Um I have two action figures in my collection. One of them is a action figure of Hera from Rebels, and the other one is from Sabine, or is of Sabine. And I got those action figures because Dave Filoni sent them to me, and he sent them to me with a handwritten letter that he wrote, and he signed it, and he drew Sabine on the letter. And he sent those to me before the toys came out, so you couldn't even find them in the stores yet. And this was when Rebels was just announced, and the first season hadn't even been out yet. And that's just really special to me because, like, I know you can buy those action figures anywhere, but I feel like the ones that I have a really special story. So I love those. Those are just definitely two of my prized pieces in my collection, and I kept the letter that he sent, and I have it framed. And eventually, I don't have them displayed very well right now, but eventually I want to put them in like a shadow box with the letter so that they'll all be together, because I think that would be pretty cool. So those are the ones that I have. And then something that I want to add to my collection, there are a lot of clothing pieces and just general like accessories that came out either decades ago or years ago that I missed out on. And there's a scarf, I can't remember the designer name right now, but there's a scarf that came out in 1999 for the Phantom Menace, and it's like a red silk scarf, and it has Queen Amidala on it, but it's just like it's so intricate and beautiful. And I've been looking for one now for like a year, and they're really difficult to find. And if you do find them, they're like pretty expensive, but I haven't had the chance yet to buy one just because they're so difficult to find. So that's something I would definitely like to add to my collection. And I think over the last few years, a lot of the things that I buy now are more clothing centric rather than toys. I used to collect a lot of the toys, but now I think I prefer to collect clothes because I wear them and I use them more, and I just enjoy wearing different Star Wars pieces. So that's one that I would definitely want. But there's like a long list of Star Wars fashion pieces that I've missed out on and I really would like to get. So there's a lot of things on that list.
Well, I'm going to ask you another question straight away because it sort of ties in. Because I had another question written down for you. Sort
Hmm.
of, what are some of your favorite Star Wars fashion collaborations and items?
Oh, yeah. This is such a good question. There is one specific collection that comes to mind, and it was a Star Wars collaboration with a designer named Preen. And I found out about this collection when it came out because Kathleen Kennedy, who is like my hero, she wore a couple of these pieces to various conventions in the summer of 2015. So she wore this like green top, and it has Darth Vader's helmet on it, but it's a very geometric design. So it's kind of abstract, and it's not like too in your face. Like you kind of have to focus on it to realize that Vader is there. And then there's another shirt that's almost exactly the same. It has Vader's helmet on it, but it's a long sleeve blouse, and it's like an orangey red color. And I really, really wanted these when they came out because I love that she wore them, and I loved the designs to begin with. But the shirts were super expensive. They were like, I think they were like $300 or $400 each, and I was in college at the time, and I was like, I can't afford that. But I actually got really lucky because the Disney parks, for some reason, carried both of those designs in one of their stores. And because they were so expensive, nobody really bought them at the Disney parks. And so all of those shirts went to this store on Disney property. I don't remember the exact name of it, but it's like the cast member store. And it's only for cast members to go to. And everything is marked down like super, super cheap. And my mom went in one day and they had those shirts, and they were marked down to $25. So she bought the red one for me at that time. And then later on, I also got the green one for like $25. So I have both of those shirts from that collection. And those are definitely two of my favorite pieces. But I also loved the Star Wars Vans when those shoes came out. I thought those were really cool. And there's another company called Black Milk Clothing, and they've been doing Star Wars collaborations for a while now. But they did a collection, must have been 2 years ago at this point, and a few of their pieces were inspired by The Last Jedi. And they had this dress that was black velvet, and on the dress were white drawings of different characters from the Canto Bite scene in The Last Jedi. And it was like really abstract and really cool. And I bought that dress, and it's like one of my favorite pieces. I actually wear it a lot because it's really comfortable and it has pockets, and it's just really cool because you wouldn't notice that it's a Star Wars dress right away. You like have to look really hard at it to notice that it's a Star Wars piece. And those are the kind of things that I really enjoy. I like things that are really subtle. So I think the Black Milk line and that Preen collection are definitely two of my favorite collaborations. But I think the nice thing about Star Wars being owned by Disney now is that there are a lot more fashion collaborations. So it's been really fun to see those get released over the years and try to get some of the pieces from each one.
Awesome. Thanks very much for that, Savannah. What's your next question for me?
So, my next question for you is related to Celebration London because that's where we met. And I thought it would be fun to ask you, what is your favorite memory from Celebration London?
Oh, that's a really tough one. Obviously, it was my first celebration, so it was probably one of like, I don't know. I'm not saying it was the best celebration ever, but because it was my first one, like it feels extra special. If that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because I didn't really know what to expect going into it. And obviously, when I bumped into you in the queue, and obviously you obviously you've been to quite a few, so obviously getting the lowdown from you, sort of what they're like and what the queues are like and how to get in the panels and all that sort of stuff. Obviously now when I go to them, like I know the situation type of thing.
Hmm.
So sort of being new to it and like that type of excitement you can't get again, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it is an extra special celebration for me. Like I said, probably was one of the greatest moments of my life, really, like just sheer joy. I think obviously got to make like, I went with my cousin for starters. So my cousin Alan like got me into Star Wars. Like he showed me Star Wars when I was about 4 on VHS, and sort of started my obsession with it there. And then with this, sort of, I mentioned it to him, and he didn't know much about it because he'd been out of fandom for a bit. So it was good to sort of introduce him to Celebration because he didn't know much about it. And I went, "Oh, this event's happening in London. We need to go." And he's like, "All right, I don't know anything about it." I went, "I'll just get tickets and we'll just go." And he was like, "Okay." So being able to share that with him was like pretty cool. Sort of both have our first celebration together. Um, and then actual, obviously got to meet. Obviously, I met you there, Savannah, which is obviously like a friendship that's still going now, which is good. Um, and then I don't know. I think moments from the actual convention, obviously, Celebration London was when we had the Rebels panel when they debuted Thrawn. Um, Now I wasn't a big Thrawn fan. I never read Here at the Empire and stuff like that. I knew who he was though. But Alan, like my cousin who was there with us, obviously he's older than me. And like obviously when Star Wars had finished, he had nothing to sort of watch or read, and obviously those books came along, and they were like quite a big deal for him, and I think quite a big deal for everyone in that room. So I think when the room sort of saw Thrawn come on screen and the way they did it in the trailer, like sort of the air got sucked out that room.
Yeah,
Um,
that's so cool that you mentioned that because I remember that too. That's actually my favorite moment too, was that panel in the same exact moment.
Yeah, and then obviously straight after the trailer, they had like Timothy Zahn come on to sort of talk about it as well, um, like through a video we'd sent in, which was pretty epic as well. And I just remember like I don't know, sort of almost realizing it was Thrawn before you saw him, like a few seconds
Yeah.
before, and it was like, oh, they're actually doing it. It's going to be him in your head, and it sort of got you like goosebumps or goose pimples going up your arms, and then obviously
Yeah.
and the reveal like followed through, and like I said, it proper like it was almost if you'd been punched in the stomach, but like in a good way. Like I said, like the air just sort of got sucked out, and like, sort of everybody was just like, "Wow, was it this? I can't believe we're getting this."
Mhm.
But like there it was right in front of us. Um, so that was probably the best panel moment. Um, Also a funny moment, obviously during the Rogue One panel, was when uh, Baze's character,
Oh my
the
God,
actor,
yeah.
obviously let slip that he was going to die in the movie,
Yeah.
which is pretty funny.
Ugh, that was so awkward. That's something that I love talking about because for people that didn't go to Star Wars Celebration London, they I don't even know if they knew about it because they cut that bit when the video went up on YouTube. So they cut that part out. But I mean, for those of us that were in the room, we were like, "Wait, did he just say that?" Like it was almost unbelievable, but it was really funny.
Yeah, so I think like those are definitely the moments I remember the most.
Those are
My
good
next
picks. Those
question,
are ones that I remember too.
my next question for you, Savannah, is obviously you mentioned before about sort of being in the 501st, and obviously you mentioned that you've sort of done costume as a Jedi before, and also as a Imperial Shadow Scout Trooper. What's the favourite piece of costuming you've done, or favourite helmet you've made? And
Mm.
what advice would you give to people wanting to get involved in creating authentic looking cosplays?
Oh man, that's a good question. Well, the Jedi and the Shadow Scout are the only costumes that I've built for myself because I'm like only 5'2", so a lot of the characters that I would like to be are much taller than I am, and I'm really not going to be a very good looking clone trooper, if you get what I'm saying. I wouldn't be a
Yeah,
very accurate one. So I've made a lot of other costumes for other people, and I've painted a lot of helmets because I really enjoy that, and I enjoy collecting them, and so does my husband. Um, my Shadow Scout is really special to me because that armor kit. So, for those of you who don't know, a lot of people in the 501st, they buy these kits and they are pieces of the costume, and then you have to put them together, bondo them, paint them, and, like assemble them before you can actually wear them. So, when I received my Shadow Scout kit, I realized that the pieces were a lot bigger than I needed them to be. And I didn't know at the time how I was going to make them fit me because they're made out of plastic. So I was like, I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do this. And I didn't want it to look like it was too big for me. Like I wanted everything to be scaled to my size and fit me right so that I wouldn't look, like a kid in an adult costume. So I spent a lot of time on that costume trimming things and like reshaping things, and I painted it with like a really nice coat of glossy black paint, so it's like perfectly reflective. And I just worked really hard on that costume, so that one means a lot to me. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. But one of my first projects was an armor kit that I was going to build for my dad. So I think it was Christmas of like 2012. My mom bought clone trooper armor kits for my brother and my dad. But side note, my dad is not a Star Wars fan. She just thought that maybe because the rest of us were doing it, like maybe he would want to get into it as well. But over time, we just realized that's just not his thing and he didn't want to wear it. But my brother and I decided to build his armor kit anyways. And then we were going to, figure out what to do with it. And that was my first time really working on any sort of armored costume, and I learned a lot of things on that, and I painted it myself, and I was really proud of how it turned out. And then at the time, our friend Sean ended up buying that costume, and now I'm married to him, so it's nice I get to still see that costume being worn, because he still has it. So it was kind of cool that it still ended up like it's kind of staying in the family. It was something that my brother and I built and we worked really hard on, and it just somehow ended up with Sean. And then later on down the road, he and I got married, and now I get to, see him wear it, and I'm like, yeah, I made that. So that's kind of cool. Um, but for those of you and for anybody that wants to get into costuming, I would say the biggest thing is to just remember that it doesn't have to look perfect. I think the most important part is just to remember you're doing it to have fun and you're doing it to enjoy it. And when I, made my first Jedi costume, my mom helped me with it, and over the years we made it better and better. But my first Jedi costume was definitely not accurate, but I had a blast wearing it and it was super fun. But if you do want to make really accurate costumes or just learn more about that, the 501st has forums online, and you can just sit there for days and days reading all types of information and different conversations that people have started. And I think that's a really good place to start. And you can also find information on those forums of where you can buy kits for the costumes you want to create. But I think YouTube is really great as well. Like if you are new to sewing, there are so many different YouTube videos that you can watch that can teach you to sew. And there's just a lot of really great tutorials over there. Um, so it's nice, like today in the age of having the internet, like everything is accessible to you. And that's how I learned to do everything. I just researched it and tried things out. And then if they went wrong, I would research it again and be like, how do I fix this? Or, how do I change it? So yeah, there's so much information at our fingertips online. And I think a good place to start would be the 501st forums.
Awesome, thanks for that. It's funny, one of the things I always get asked by people who sort of don't really know Star Wars that well, they'll be like, "Oh, when I've come back from like a convention, they'll be like, "Oh, did you go and get dressed up?" I was like, "Oh, like no, no." And they're like, "Oh, why?" I was like, "You don't realize how much like time and effort goes into those costumes that people wear.
Yeah,
Like I kind of just go to the shop and buy something and wear it and like and it look that good. Like it takes
right.
some people spend years like obviously
Yeah.
like finishing them up. I think a lot of people don't realize that, especially who aren't in fandom.
It's expensive too. Like to be honest, I don't really cosplay a whole lot anymore for, a lot of different reasons, but one of the reasons is that it's really expensive. So if you want to do it, you kind of have to be comfortable with the fact that you're going to spend at least a few $100s. So yeah, it's definitely something that's maybe not accessible for everyone, but if you do want to try it out, there are ways where you can figure out how to do it like cheaper or easier. But yeah, it's definitely not something you just like go to the store and buy off of a shelf.
Yeah. Well,
My next question for you is actually one that you asked me earlier. So now we'll get to hear your answer. So the question is, what is your favorite piece of Star Wars merchandise, one that you own and one that you would like to have?
ooh, that's a tough one.
I
um,
know, right?
yeah. So I think like just this past year, sort of, I bought my first home, So a lot of my Star Wars collections come from my mum's house, which has been like in the loft for a lot of years. So like in there was like my kind of Millennium Falcon, which is like the 90s version. And it's like it's broken. Um, but just having that back's pretty cool. Like I've got it on display in the office now. Like I said, like the gun turret's like snapped off, and the satellite dish is hanging off. It's discoloured. The the smuggler's compartment from the inside's missing. So it's like not worth anything really, but just like having it back and like just when I look at it, I just think like that looks awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And like because I did like I said, I played with it so much that I said like it is damaged. Like it's the type of thing where like when it would snow here, I would like take it out in the snow and like play Empire Strikes Back. So like I'm pretty sure the electronics don't work on it anymore either, because it got like wet with the snow. But like I think like because the Falcon is a piece of junk, even though like that is destroyed a bit, it still looks awesome on the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that. Then I've also got my X-wing from then too, the 90s X-wing, which was in one piece, strange enough, which I wasn't expecting. So I found those. So they were on display and they look really good, but also like I've got really good memories of like being a child and playing a lot with them.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else. And one with a funny story is I do have a I think the class has the Hasbro Black Series lightsabers now, but before that they were the Force FX lightsaber collection.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I've got the Luke Skywalker one of those. But it's funny because like I'd wanted one for years. My mum used to always say like you can't have it for Christmas, you can't have it for your birthday. And then I got like my 22nd birthday, and she was like, "What do you want for your birthday?" And I was like, "Didn't really want anything." And I was like, "Well, do you know when I was like in my teenage years, Mum, I wanted that lightsaber and I wasn't allowed it?" She was like, "Yeah, when I just want that, please." She's like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Yeah." So like my mum bought us it for my 22nd birthday. So I always find it funny that like I didn't get it when I was like younger, but like got it as like an adult present.
Yeah, that's
Which
cool.
is like it's definitely a child present. So like then when you go people and they what do you get for your birthday? And I'd be like, "Oh, a lightsaber," and they'd be like, "Don't joke." I was like, "No, seriously, my mum bought us a
Oh yeah.
lightsaber." But it was like just awesome to finally get it, and also to get it like as an adult. It was like quite weird in a fun way.
Yeah, I have one of those too that I got when I was like 18, but mine is a Kit Fisto lightsaber. So it's okay. You're in like good company here.
Yeah, no, definitely. As for an item I don't have that I want, I don't know if it's classed as an item, but like one day I would love to own a Ralph McQuarrie original painting,
Oh man, me and you both.
and it's like never gonna happen. But like that is my dream. Obviously, Ralph was the concept artist on the original trilogy. So that's probably one thing that I would really want. Trying to think what else. It's funny because since I found my X-wing, it was like on display on the shelf. I really want to find the Luke Skywalker X-wing pilot and the R2-D2 figure from the same line, which was the early 90s Power of the Force line, I think.
Yeah.
Or maybe Power of the Jedi. I'm not sure that's one of them. So I really want to try and find those like carded, and then stick them in the case next to me X-wing.
Oh, that would be cool.
I mean, it's funny because I had those. It's funny. I gave all my Star Wars figures away like maybe about 10 years ago.
Mm.
They were all open, like, but I just given them to like a kid down the street. So sometimes I regret that decision now,
Oh.
but there's times I don't because I'm like, like that kid got to play with them, and like he's probably still playing with them now. Hopefully, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
maybe he
people, like,
passed them on to somebody else.
yeah, definitely. Like I said, they were all open and play with, so that they weren't worth anything. But so I think it was definitely sort of sometimes I regret it and sometimes I don't. On that one.
Yeah. I saw you recently got the Cad Bane Black Series figure.
Yeah, that arrived just this past week. It's pretty awesome. The way they've designed the boxes now with the new artwork on the side in the Hasbro Black Series 6-inch line is pretty cool.
Yeah. That's really cool. I definitely want to get that one.
Have you been able to find one yet?
I haven't looked hard enough. I I really wanted it, and then my husband told me the other day that he ordered this like 1/4 scale statue of Cad Bane, and the statue also has a Toto 360 character with him. And so I was like, okay, if we're gonna have that, do I really need the action figure? And then I kind of forgot that it came out. And honestly, when I saw your Instagram post this morning, I was like, oh man, I wanted to look for that. So I need to look today and see if it's still available anywhere and if I can order it. But I recently found out so we have a friend who worked on the Clone Wars, and he unfortunately passed away in April, but we just found out like a couple weeks ago that he actually helped design that character Toto 360, and Cad Bane is my favorite Star Wars character ever. So I was like, man, I should really get that as like a special piece to like honor him. And then also I love Cad Bane. And it's like that special edition Black Series one that has Toto 360 with him. So I was like, okay, I should try to look for that one since it's like a little more special. So I need to do that today. Otherwise, they're probably all sold out.
Yeah, I mean, I've found the distributions I think's been pretty poor.
Yeah.
Definitely in the UK since like 2015,
Oh, yeah,
and
definitely. It's the same here too.
I found that if you wait, obviously the figures go on sale and sell out, and then they're all vanished. But then if
Hmm.
you wait a few months, they turn back up in stores where they've been sitting in a warehouse for some reason,
Mm,
and they get discounted sometimes. So it's definitely worth, even if it's gone now, it probably hasn't gone.
right.
But I'll keep an eye out on this side of the water for you as well, because like I said, I managed to pre-order mine for um, normal price. Like there's no extra price added or anything, like you would a
Oh,
normal figure.
good.
I think I got it for like 22 pounds.
Oh, yeah, that's like a regular price. I'll let you know today if I can't find it anywhere, and I might need you to like keep an eye out for me.
Yeah, and something made us think. Even this one actually, I was texting a friend that I've got the Cad Bane figure, and my autocorrect on my phone autocorrected Cad Bane to Cad Babe.
Yeah, I know that happens all the time.
So, but
Sometimes I just leave it. I'm like, whatever.
yeah, but it did make us think of you when it came up. I was like, well, someone I would like that one.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that happens to me all the time. And thankfully, the people that I'm texting, they know what I'm talking about. But I'm like, you know what? It's cute. I'll leave it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a cool figure though.
So my next question for you, Savannah, is um, obviously you're a big fan of sort of Disney parks and spend time there. Obviously,
Hmm.
being a Florida native, and obviously having a family member as a cast member. Um, Sort of, how did you feel with the announcement of Galaxy's Edge coming, and sort of how do you feel Galaxy's Edge has been executed, and like how do you think Galaxy's Edge is now compared to sort of what it could have been and what you were thinking it could be?
Mm. I have a lot of opinions about this. Are you ready?
Let's go.
So when they announced it, I was like, okay, that's a really cool idea, but how is this really going to work? What is it going to look like? What is it going to be like as a guest to experience this? And as things were announced and rumored and whatnot, I was like, okay, this will be interesting because, like I said, my mom is a cast member. She's actually a character performer at the park, so I've heard a lot of her stories about what it's like to be a character. And when we first started hearing rumors that the characters were going to be kind of free roaming within Galaxy's Edge, like they weren't going to be in one spot where you just go to a meet and greet, they'll just be walking around. I was like, I don't know if that's going to work. I feel like they're just going to get bombarded with people, and a lot of guests are rude to people in the costumes and they'll just like grab them and even punch them and things like that. And I was like, I don't know, this doesn't sound like a good idea. So to be honest, I was very skeptical at first, and I just I wasn't entirely sure if I was going to like it. But I went to Galaxy's Edge last October. So the land opened in the summer. I didn't want to go first thing because I knew it would be crazy crowded. But I went in October, like over Halloween weekend, and I definitely enjoyed my time. And I think I have differing opinions on different parts of Galaxy's Edge. So the thing that I really like is how it looks. I think it looks amazing and it really feels like you're in a Star Wars, place. Like it just feels very real. And they did an amazing job with the design of everything. It's very big. It's enormous. And when you look up, there's just like so many buildings and things to look at. It makes you feel very small in a very large area, and I like that. So that part of it is great. Um, the food that they have in that area is great. I tried the blue and green milk. Didn't like the green milk, but the blue milk was actually pretty good. But they have other food in the area. They have like the Ronto wraps, which are freaking delicious. Like they're so good. And then they have a lot of other things that you can eat. And they did a really great job on that. I rode Smuggler's Run, and I thought that ride was like just okay. The line area is really cool because you're literally walking into the Falcon and you get to see the inside of the Falcon, and all of that looks great. But for the ride part, it wasn't like amazing to me. I didn't think it was that great, and it's something I rode like 4 times. And to be honest, it's not something that I feel like I need to ride again. Um, but when I was there, Rise of the Resistance was not open yet. So I haven't done that ride yet. So I kind of only got it to experience one of the two rides in the area. And the last thing is the merchandise in that area. And to be honest, I was very disappointed by the merchandise. They have a lot of things in Doc Ondar's Den of Antiquities, and those items are more premium items. So they have the lightsabers that you can buy, they have jewelry pieces, they have costume pieces, etc. And they were all like kind of cool, but a lot of them were just so overpriced. And for someone who makes their own costumes and has a lightsaber and has Star Wars jewelry, I just didn't feel like I needed to buy any of it, and especially not for the price tag. So I didn't even buy anything. I bought one thing in all of Galaxy's Edge, and it was a pair of earrings from the droid shop, and they were $12. Like they were very cheap. And they were pretty cool. So I got those. But other than that, I was really underwhelmed by a lot of the merchandise. And I know a lot of people will disagree with me on that, which is fine. Um, but that part was not my favorite. But I do think it's a really great space that they can continue to add to. I saw Chewbacca and Vi Marati walking around when I was there. I also saw Kylo Ren and Rey, and all of those characters were great. But I think in order to make Galaxy's Edge as immersive as they want it to be, I really think they need to have like aliens and droids roaming around. Because while it's great to have those like named characters walking around, I think they really need aliens and droids because that's Star Wars. That's where you feel like you're in Star Wars. But overall, it was pretty good. I think there's a lot of things they could improve on, but it was definitely a nice place to just hang out. Like there was one day I was with a couple friends of mine, and we were just kind of hot and tired, and we just went over into Galaxy's Edge and found a quiet little corner to sit. And it was really nice to just sit there and look at all the things around you. There's just so much to look at and so many small details to notice. So that was really cool. I definitely got really teary when I saw the Millennium Falcon, which I did not expect. I really didn't think I was going to cry, but it was emotional seeing it. Like it was very cool. So I think if I could rate it, I'd give it like 4 stars out of 5, but I think the merchandise really needs to be stepped up. But other than that, the rest of it was really cool. So that's my very long-winded answer for you, Peter.
No, that's awesome. So, how would you compare Smuggler's Run, the Millennium Falcon ride, to Star Tours?
So I would still prefer Star Tours over Smuggler's Run because even though on Smuggler's Run you get to pilot the ship and everything, the storyline is always the same. So that got a little boring, to be honest. And I was not a good pilot at all. I was terrible. I was a much better engineer. So I like going on Star Tours because you can just sit there and enjoy it, and you don't have to worry about piloting the ship and crashing it and pushing flashing buttons every 5 seconds. Um, and on Star Tours, they have all those different combinations now, so you don't know exactly where you're gonna go, and you don't know which like transmission you're gonna get, or which opening you're gonna get, or which ending you're gonna get. So I personally think Star Wars or Star Tours is better because it's different. And to be honest, I was just really stressed when I rode Smuggler's Run because you have to do something. You can't just sit there and enjoy it. You have to either fly the ship or be a gunner or be an engineer, which is, it's fine. But yeah, not my favorite. I definitely like Star Tours better.
Awesome. And did you see DJ R3X?
I did, yeah. So the cantina was pretty cool. I don't drink alcohol, but they did have drinks in the cantina that were non-alcoholic, and they were good. I tried a couple of them, and they had like a couple little finger foods, but I didn't get those. But DJ Rex was super cool. My only complaint is that the cantina has a lot of um areas where it's standing room only. So there's a few booths, but most of the other bar areas you have to stand, which is fine. But when you're, walking around a theme park all day, it's really nice to sit and enjoy a beverage. So I do wish they had more chairs and places to sit around the bar. But DJ Rex was really cool, and yeah, they did a great job with him. The cantina looks amazing too. Like when you walk in, it really looks like you're walking into a cantina. But just from like a theme park perspective, it would be nice if they had more seats in there so you could kind of rest when you're enjoying your drinks.
Awesome. Brilliant
So,
answer, Savanna. Thank you.
yeah. So my next question for you is, what is one Star Wars moment that always makes you smile?
Ooh.
Like in the movies or shows?
I think like if you take Rebels, Star Wars Rebels, whenever Chopper like speaks before he does
Mm.
something, obviously you sort of don't know what he said because it's just noises, but his responses always seem so like sass and cheeky, and I often imagine him swearing as well, and it's like I don't know, I find it funny how he's quite full of attitude and he'll like respond to people like that, but then he goes and helps them anyway and does what he's told him to do. So I always sort of have a chuckle when Chopper's on screen and when he's made his noises before he does something. So I just love interpreting what I think he's saying. I think one that always makes us smile would be obviously Yoda in Empire Strikes Back before he's came out of Luke and acknowledged that he is the Jedi Master when he's acting a bit silly. I think he's brilliant. Uh, Always makes us laugh and smile. I think watching The Force Awakens, obviously when they're running for the quad jumper, and it's like, what about the junk? And you sort of know what's coming. And then when the camera pans around, and it's right there. And then you get the little Millennium Falcon like fanfare as well. That was a pretty like awesome moment as well in the movie. I'm trying to think. Sort of, I think 3PO. Like I think he's like underrated. Obviously, like he's very annoying. He's very annoying, but like annoying in a way that makes you laugh. Especially like if you take him when he's at Jabba's palace and he's like doesn't want to be there and he's working for Jabba and he's like obviously doing whatever Jabba tells him, and then when Jabba hits him, for example, and he falls over. Um, Obviously, all sort of like funny moments there where it's like it's probably the last place he wants to be is in that type of situation, but he always ends up in those situations because he won't leave his friends. If that makes sense, like he'll always be friends with Luke and Leia and Han, and he works for the
Yeah.
rebellion, so therefore he's always going to be in those situations, and like, but he won't leave. Not that droids can leave, but do you know what I mean? But he's always getting himself in another situation and another one to help the
Yeah.
team. But every time he's always complaining.
Yeah, that's funny. There are a lot of C3PO moments that make me smile. And one of my favorites is when it's in Empire Strikes Back and Han Solo is going out to save Luke in the beginning on Hoth. And R2 is, telling them the odds of what his survival rate is. And 3PO goes, well, R2 has been known to make mistakes from time to time. And I just think he's like so funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good choice. 3PO has a lot of cute moments.
My next question for you is um, sort of going forward. Um, Obviously, with like future Star Wars projects that are coming out, um, sort of what are some of the Star Wars projects you're most looking forward to? In like if they were not a movie, if they were like a TV show or a comic or a book, sort of what type of mediums are you looking forward to exploring in the future?
Oh, hmm. Well, I really like the animated shows a lot. But I've also been enjoying the audio dramas that have come out. There's the Dooku Jedi Lost audio drama, and there's a new audio drama with why can't I remember her name? Dr. Afra. I think that's a really cool medium to explore. But ultimately, I'm still wanting two things. I want Cad Bane to come back in some capacity because we don't know where he is. I want some sort of show or comic or whatever with him in it. And then my other thing that I really want is that I would love a TV show, either animated or live action, about the Night Sisters from the Clone Wars because I love them and I really enjoy Ventress as a character. And I would love for them to go back in time a little bit, maybe before the Clone Wars, and explore her character because we've seen her in the Clone Wars. We have her story in the Dark Disciple book, but I just really want to know more about her in general, and I want to know more about the Night Sisters. Um, so I hope in the future, I know that we'll continue seeing animated shows because we have heard about the Bad Batch and we've heard about Cassian and Kenobi, so we know that we're getting live action shows, and I hope that those continue because I've really enjoyed them. But I also like the audio dramas a lot, and I hope that maybe they'll do some more of those and explore different parts of the storylines that we haven't heard. But I'm really, really want to see Cad Bane come back, and I want to know more about Ventress too. So those are like kind of what I would like to see in the future. But I'm kind of down for anything. I mean, at this point, I I don't know. I think the things that they've announced so far sound interesting. Like the Kenobi show sounds interesting. The Cassian show sounds interesting. I'm excited for the Bad Batch. So, yeah, those are kind of the things that I would like to see.
It's funny you mentioned Cad Bane. Speaking of Celebration in London, I was surprised I didn't mention this. Actually, I've totally forgotten it. So I bumped into Dave Filoni on the floor.
Hmm.
Um, the great thing about sort of that celebration was that um, a lot of people didn't know who he was who were there, so he wasn't getting sort of mobbed as much. So I was able to grab him for a picture. And I also asked him a question and I asked him whether he thought sort of Cad Bane was like alive and dead, like alive or dead in canon. And he sort of paused and he thought about it, which I loved. I loved that he like took the time to think. And then he was like, "Oh, like I don't know, like this might be a story there, like sort of like the way Dave does, where he sort of answers the question but doesn't." So yeah, so like not saying that that's anything to go by, but sort of I inquired about that when I did see him in 2016.
I
He
really think he's
sort of was
alive.
open to it.
There's a lot of people that are like, "Oh, there's an unfinished scene from the Clone Wars where Boba Fett shoots Cad Bane." And I'm like, "Yeah, but that was never finished, so I don't really count that." Like I'm not counting that as canon because that was never really in the finished version of the Clone Wars. So I
Yeah.
think he's still out there. I think he's still alive, and I mean, I personally think it would be really cool if he popped up in The Mandalorian, but I'd also be down to see him anywhere else, and I think he's out there still.
Well, even in that unfinished sort of um, raw animation for that scene, you only see his hat hit the ground. So like,
Yeah,
if,
you
the,
don't know.
if his head probably doesn't fill the whole hat, I don't think.
I
I always got the
agree.
impression from that little animated, the little sequence was that they both shoot each other in the head. Obviously, a bit hits Boba's helmet and doesn't kill him, and a bit hits Cad Bane's hat and doesn't kill him. Was how I always thought of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, a lot of people like to argue with me about that clip, and I'm just like, listen, he's still out there. I know it.
um, and one quick one on Cad Bane. Who would you pick to play a live action Cad Bane?
Oh man. I don't know because I mean it's going to have to be someone that's wearing a mask or some sort of prosthetics cuz he doesn't have a human face, and I would hope that Corey Burton would come back and continue to do his voice. But as far as someone that would play him, I don't really have a choice because I can't picture like, it's not like he's going to look like anyone. So I can't really imagine that, but I would hope that they would pick someone that has like a really good walk. You know how the Mandalorian has like a really good swagger to him and he has like a really
Yeah,
cool Western style kind of walk. I think they would probably pick someone for Cad Bane that has a similar kind of vibe. And I think they would have to pick someone that's very tall and lean because he seems like a very tall character. So I can't think of like an actor off the top of my head, but it would need to be someone that looks physically looks the part as far as like the style of what his like body type looks like and has a good walk, and I would hope that Corey Burton would still voice him.
yeah, awesome.
Is it my turn now?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So the last question I have for you is which cameo rumor for The Mandalorian season 2 do you hope is true? Because we've heard a lot of them by now.
I mean, for starters, I just wish I hadn't heard any of them.
Same.
um,
Same.
and the fact that none have been like denied or confirmed as well, just it's just annoying. Um, I think because am I right in thinking that none of them have been confirmed?
Yeah, none of them have.
So I think for me, the one that I'm excited about the most is probably, and hope it's true, is probably Bo-Katan, because I think it fits the story really, really perfectly. Like it makes sense. Obviously, we've got Moff Gideon with the dark saber. The last person we saw with the dark saber was Bo-Katan. Um, obviously, there was this big purge of Mandalore. Obviously, I think she would have been the leader at the time. So she would have been heavily involved in that. So if we're going to get sort of flashbacks to that, how does Moff Gideon know so much about Mandalore? Um, I think she fits perfectly into that story, so I can sort of see where she fits in. Where obviously, like, I love Ahsoka; she's one of my favorite characters, but obviously, I don't know anything about season 2. So looking at it, sort of seeing where Ahsoka fits in is a bit more difficult. And for me, if you're going to bring Ahsoka into it, you have to make sure that story's perfect. Because if it's not, I mean, you're going to damage such a great character. Is my opinion anyway. Like it has to have the right feel, and like you can't just put someone like Ahsoka in. You can't put any character in a situation just for the sake of it. So like obviously I can see where Bo-Katan fits, so that's why I picked Bo-Katan. Where I don't know where Ahsoka would fit. Obviously, if Ahsoka is in it, I'm hopeful that they'll tell a story where she does fit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, those are my picks too. I feel the same way. I think there's been a lot of because I think even like Captain Rex was rumored, and I don't think he fits, and I don't think Ahsoka fits. But I think the only one that would really make the most sense is Bo Katan, and I think that would be really cool. Like I love her character, so yeah.
Definitely. I believe I've asked all my questions for you, Savannah. I've just got one last question for you,
Okay.
which you don't know about. Um, can you talk to us, please, about a project coming up called The Adventures of the Zolan Dart?
Oh, I'm so excited about this. Yes, I can. So, my co-host Brian and I, we were talking like, gosh, it's been like a year and a half now. We were saying that we really wanted to make an audio drama, and we we just kind of like threw the idea around for a while. And then at Celebration, they announced the Dooku Jedi Lost audio drama. And I listened to it. I loved it. And then I texted Brian one day and I was like, we should make one of those. We should do it. And he was like, really? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And let's produce it through the Dorky Diva show, which is our podcast. So we did it. And Brian wrote an amazing story. He wrote, I think it's like a 68-page script of a full cast of characters. There's almost 30 characters. And the Adventures of the Zolan Dart is about a crew of smugglers who are very by the books, and they aren't shady smugglers. They are very um, good people, and they have good morals, and they don't want to get into trouble. And it's a crew of Navsana Otoa, who is the leader of the crew. She's the captain of the Zolan Dart. And then we have Reldar Sias, and he is her number two. And then they have a droid named Murphy, and it's the three of them going through the galaxy, experiencing a lot of different things, maybe getting into some trouble. I'm not going to say too much, but we've been working very hard on this audio drama for over a year now, and we have gotten one of our friends on board. Her name is Christina Moores, and she is our sound designer. So she is doing a lot of the editing work. She's creating original sounds for us to include in this audio drama. And we're hoping to release it by the end of the year. It looks like that's still a good timeline for us. But once we have a better idea of where we are in the post production schedule, we'll release like an official date when we know it will come out. But right now, they're hard at work editing the audio drama. And I'm just so excited for people to hear it because I'm producing the project and I really only hear bits and pieces of it along the way, whereas Brian is the person who is directing it and recording all of the lines with all of our voice actors. So he's hearing everything from recording to a final scene, and he's getting to see how those things change along the way. But my role is a little bit more pulled back, so I hear things when they're almost done. And I've heard a couple scenes now that are pretty much done, and it sounds amazing, like way more high quality and professional than I could ever imagine. So I'm really excited for people to hear it, and I think it's I think it's really going to blow people away, and I'm not just saying that to like, you know, blow smoke up myself, because I'm not the person, doing the voices or editing it. I'm not that person. But I think we have a lot of talented people who are working on this, and I think the story is amazing, and I just think it's incredible. To me, it sounds like if you were literally watching a movie and you just closed your eyes, like it sounds that good. So look for that towards the end of the year. Sorry, Peter, I'm going to like do a little self promotion here. If you want to follow the project, go to the Dorky Diva Show presents.com, and that's where we're updating a lot of news and announcements about that project. And you can also go on there and listen to our first teaser trailer.
Awesome, no problem at all, Savannah. So obviously looking to release it for the end of the year. Will it be released as sort of one story, or will it be like episodic?
Yeah, so this one's going to be one story. It'll be over an hour long, so it's a pretty substantial story. It's not like a 15 or 20-minute piece. It's a full story, and we'll be releasing it all at one time. So you can just when it is ready, you can just download it and listen to the entire thing. We won't be breaking it up into episodes.
And you probably can't answer this. Is the plans for a second adventure?
I don't know, Peter. I don't know. Maybe you'll just have to wait and see.
Well, I'm very excited to check it out. So the end of the year can't come quick enough.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think it's going to be new for me because I don't really do audio dramas. So with Dooku Jedi Lost, I waited for the book. So like, I've read the book, which is essentially the script,
Hmm.
which I enjoyed. I loved it. And I'm probably going to do the same with Doctor Afra. Probably wait for them to print it. But obviously, when yours comes out, The Adventures of the Zolan Dart, it'll be sort of my first sort of step into audio drama. So I'm quite excited for that.
Yeah, we worked really hard on trying to have a very diverse cast of characters and voices so that hopefully when you're listening to it, it's easy for you to differentiate some of the voices because that's something we both noticed, both Brian and I noticed when we listened to the Dooku Jedi Lost audio drama. We loved the story, but when we were listening, sometimes it was hard to tell who was talking. So we made that really important to us when we were choosing voice actors for the adventures of the Zolan Dart, that we wanted people with very different types of voices so that you always knew who was talking. So that's something I hope people will appreciate and hopefully be able to follow the story very well. But Christina has done a phenomenal job doing so many amazing transitional sounds so that you understand the environment that they're in and what's going on so that you can visualize in your head what's happening. um, but like you, Peter, I listened to the Dooku Jedi Lost audio drama, but I also read the book, which you said is basically just the script. And I haven't discussed this with Brian yet, but I do hope to maybe release the script as well in case people want to kind of read along while they listen, if that's more of their thing. But we'll also be releasing a synopsis about each character in the audio drama so you can kind of have an idea of what they look like and who they are before you hear them in the story. So hopefully when you hear the audio drama, you can, kind of close your eyes and picture what's happening because you already know what these characters are going to look like.
Awesome. Thanks very much for that, Savannah. And then just one last thing from me. Um, Obviously, you are sort of the creator of the DorkyDiva.com website and blog and the Dorky Diva show, the podcast, with the tagline sort of where fashion meets fandom. Um, have you been working on any um, sort of fashion projects that are available for people right now?
Oh, yeah. I've got something coming out very soon. So it's not out just yet. There's a little teaser announcement on my blog at the moment, but I partnered up with Tori Fox from Creature Cartel, and we are designing a collaborative collection of t shirts and accessories that are centric around specific female Star Wars characters. So it's about the women of Star Wars. And I'll just go ahead and say it. The first two characters that we're featuring are Ahsoka Tano and Duchess Satine from the Clone Wars. So look for that in the next couple weeks. All the information will be on the Dorky Diva. I'll be offering the t-shirts, and then Tori has created two amazing accessories that will go with the shirts I'm designing. I also worked with an artist named Alyssa Bradley, and she did all the artwork on the t-shirts. So she took my ideas and really brought them to life. And I just got pictures literally 2 days ago of the t-shirts. I should be receiving my samples soon, and they look so beautiful. So I've always like dreamed and hoped that one day the Dorky Diva could become a fashion brand. And I know t-shirts aren't really like fashion forward, but you got to start somewhere. So I'm excited to release these, and who knows, maybe in the future I'll be able to design more, high end clothing pieces through my brand. But for now, it's t-shirts, and these next ones that are coming out are really great, and I'm very proud of them. So that's definitely coming soon.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much for joining me, Savannah, today on the Starboard Show. Where can the people find you on social media?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. This was so much fun, and I'm glad that we kind of got to catch up and talk about Star Wars. But for the listeners, if you would like to find me online, my blog is thedorkydiva.com, and my social media handles are all at the Dorky Diva. And yeah, my podcast is the Dorky Diva Show, and that's where Brian and I talk about Star Wars on a very unregular basis, but we are recording next weekend, so we should have a new episode out very soon.
And you have a second podcast, The Working Diva, is that correct?
Yeah, so I started the Working Diva this year back in March, and I started that podcast because I recently started my own marketing business, and I just find myself wanting to talk about like work related subjects with different women who are in similar situations. So um, on The Working Diva, I typically interview a guest on one episode, and then the next episode is just an episode with me talking about some sort of work-related topic. So today, as we're recording this episode, I actually released an episode for The Working Diva, and it's all about how to step outside of your comfort zone at work and what to do when it goes wrong, because things will inevitably go wrong, and that's okay. So yeah, that's The Working Diva. You can find that also on thedorkydiva.com, and you can also just search that name wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Brilliant. Well, Savanna, again, thank you very much for coming on. I really do appreciate it. It's been great catching up. May the force be with you.
Thank you, Peter, and may the force be with you too as well.
Please follow us on Twitter at BoresStar. That's at BORESSTAR. And on Instagram and Facebook at Starbores Podcast. You can also reach us on email at starborespodcast@gmail.com. The Starbores Show can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, and wherever podcasts can be found. Please give us a like, subscribe, and don't forget to leave a 5-star review. May the force be with you.